Saudi Arabia, an enormous, almost uninhabited country. Endless deserts. In the olden days, only the Bedouin caravans traveled through here. Today, Saudi Arabia is one of the richest countries on earth and an important religious hub for the Muslim world. A place of pilgrimage like no other. More than 2 million people visit these holy sites for their yearly pilgrimage. One family has been solely ruling this country for 300 years with an iron fist. One pact, once made between a religious zealot and a visionary sheikh, is still in force to this day. The landscapes of Saudi Arabia seem to be from another planet. A world burnt by the sun, approximately 9 times the size of the United Kingdom, but with vast uninhabited areas. For thousands of years, the Bedouins have been traveling their ancient routes through the waterless wasteland to get from one oasis to the next. If people want to survive in this, they have to choose even their pets wisely. Dromedaries, for instance, their physiology is perfectly suited for life in the desert. They are ideal transport animals for nomads and merchants like the Nabateans. They settle around 500 BCE in the north of the Arabian Peninsula and specialize in trading frankincense. The Nabateans are controlling the trade on the Arabian Peninsula, from today's Yemen all the way to their settlements in the north. Religious influences from other cultures reach the Arabian Peninsula through the merchant caravans of the Nabateans. The whole world of the Greek and Roman gods, as well as the one God of the Jews and the Christians. These religions coexist by and large peacefully together. At that time, a trade hub for the merchant caravans was located close to today's Mecca. For ages, the city has also been a religious center for the Bedouin tribes of the region. Legend has it that a sanctuary had existed in Mecca since the beginning of time. Long before Mecca becomes the center of the Islamic world, it is already a pilgrimage destination, a place where the divine becomes palpable.
Mecca was multi-religious. There were different religions or worldviews, as one would say today. But it was not religion that kept society together, but the loyalty to a certain tribe. There were different tribes, and each had its own individual tribal rules. There was no universal common law for everyone. The tribes also often went to war against each other, as they were competing for supremacy on the Arabian Peninsula.
In the 7th century BCE, a man emerged in Mecca who succeeded to ultimately unite the enemy tribes of Saudi Arabia and who changed large parts of the world forever. Muhammad. Muhammad opposes the polytheism in Mecca, which is not well received by the local priests and merchants. After all, they live off the pilgrimages. A controversy arises. The Prophet and his followers are expelled from Mecca. He flees to Medina. This is where he allegedly dictated the texts of his divine revelation to his scribes. After his death, they get arranged in order and put together in a book, the Quran. Muhammad becomes the founder of a new religion. He is one of the most influential figures in world history. But first, Muhammad returns to Mecca 8 years later with armed soldiers. They are seizing the city almost without a fight. He immediately starts to destroy all idol imagery around and inside the Kaaba. The cult figures have to also disappear from private homes. The Prophet makes an offer to all residents of Mecca to either follow him or leave the city within a short period of time. The Kaaba becomes the center of his monotheistic beliefs. The black stone is also spared by the Prophet. Legend has it that he installed it himself into a corner of the Kaaba. That is where it still remains today. The Muslims call the Kaaba the House of God. The ritual circles begin and end at the black stone. Islam as practiced in Saudi Arabia was stricter than elsewhere in the world already back at that time. This Islamic movement is tied to a name, Muhammad ibn Abd. He grows up on the Arabian Peninsula at the beginning of the 18th century and soon makes a name for himself through his pursuit of scholarliness.
Ibn Abd al-Wahhab was an exceptional person from an early age on, and that has mostly to do with his family background. His father and his grandfather were already among the most famous religious scholars in Central Arabia. And in Central Arabia, religious authority was passed on from one generation to another, actually to this day.
It is presumed that the young boy had already memorized the Quran at the age of 10. At the age of 11, he goes on his first pilgrimage to Mecca and starts preaching. His main interest is the Hadith, stories about the life, words and acts of the Prophet, directing faithful Muslims in all aspects of life. Abd al-Wahhab develops his radical Islamic teachings as a reaction to crisis.
Central Arabia during the 18th century is an immensely poor region troubled by a number of very catastrophic crises. Drought periods, plagues of locusts. Many residents had to leave Central Arabia. It appears Ibn Abd al-Wahhab was looking for a solution. He was asking himself, what is the reason for God punishing us? And his answer was, at least after his return from Medina, that a return to the true Islam of the faithful forefathers of the 7th century would be the appropriate answer.
Abd al-Wahhab's interpretation of Islam, the submission to God's will, is a radical devotion to the foundation of the religion, to the Quran and other sources considered genuine. Everything else is rejected.
The essence of the teachings of Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab is to say there is one very clear Islamic doctrine that was watered down by Muslims. And this clear doctrine means there is just one God, one sole God, and no one else. And that man is not allowed to do anything that Prophet Muhammad did not do during his time. That includes, for instance, the banning of music and tobacco and other things. That means a very strict doctrine.
Und andere Dinge, das heißt eine ganz strikte Lehre.
Whoever doesn't follow Abd al-Wahhab's strict rules renounces one's faith, according to him. For the residents of his village, however, this goes too far. They force him into exile. Abd al-Wahhab's place of birth is located in a central region of Saudi Arabia, Najd. The Jabal Tuwaiq sprawls over almost 100 kilometers here, a steep slope out of limestone. During the rainy season, the valleys at the foot collect water, making traditional irrigated farming possible. Lush vegetation can form where fertile marshes sprawling. One of these oases is Diriyah, the home of the clan of the al-Saud. This is where Abd al-Wahhab finds refuge, after repeatedly running into trouble elsewhere because of his radical teachings. The leader of this clan, Muhammad ibn Saud, becomes his best ally. Their encounter should change the world.
These two men seemingly liked each other from the start. Both were determined, both were inspired missionaries, but both were also underdogs of sorts. Because of external conspiracies of dark powers, they had not yet been able to develop their full potential. And then these two forces form an alliance. One grants the other asylum, and the other provides him with authority in return. I think these two figures were both very charismatic, and they saw an extremely useful alliance in each other.
Muhammad ibn Saud realizes clearly that he could utilize the teachings of Abd al-Wahhab for his own ambitions. Because the traditional Islamic point of view sees the world divided up into the House of Peace, ruled by Islam, and the House of War, which is the world of the infidels. If all who do not follow the teachings of Abd al-Wahhab have been renouncing their faith, he is able to relentlessly take action even against Muslim enemies. That is his clever conclusion.
The radical monotheistic teachings of Ibn Abd al-Wahhab certainly had political effects. He is of the opinion that only someone who strictly adheres to his rules, thus the rules of God, can be a true Muslim. And this interpretation means that the residents of important neighboring territories, but definitely the Ottomans and the Egyptians, are all looked upon as infidels. And needless to say that these infidels need to be fought in a holy war called jihad. This constitutes the enormous explosive power of a very religious teaching.
In 1744, Abd al-Wahhab and Ibn Saud make a pact. Saud agrees to enforce the Wahhabite teachings in his territory, and in return, the preacher grants him the authority to fight his enemies.
It was a mutual instrumentalization, and as a result, both established a position of power, unfortunately at the expense of an enlightened Islam, at the expense of a spiritually ethical Islam.
The aspiring Saud is determined to use the explosive power of Abd al-Wahhab's fundamentalist teachings for his own lofty plans. Up until now, he is just another small tribal chief among many others. That is about to change. Because Wahhabism declares other tribes and their leaders to be infidels, he is justified in the name of God to mobilize against them and to subject them to his rule. This is how Muhammad ibn Saud's conquering expeditions become a holy mission for his fighters, and they are willing to die for them. With the help of religion, Muhammad ibn Saud accomplishes what no other clan leader before him had ever achieved: to unite Central Arabia under one rule. After 1745, he conquers region after region through faith and sword and enables Abd al-Wahhab to promote his teachings in compliance with their pact. Finally, his successors close in on Mecca and Medina. While reaching for the Kaaba in the heart of Mecca, the al-Saud are making a bid for the leadership of the Islamic world. They are willing to push through with the sword. A Muslim daring to attack the holiest sites of Islam, and even in the name of the Prophet. That had happened only once before. Any resistance is mercilessly extinguished. In Medina, the crowds of Ibn Saud destroy early Islamic tombs of men worshipped as saints because they consider this blasphemy. Only the grave of the Prophet himself gets spared. From now on, only their rules apply.
The leading power in the Arab world, by its own estimation at the time, was the Ottoman Empire. Having these holy sites so disdainfully taken by a sectarian movement that was fairly unknown at the time was a provocation that the Ottomans could not let go unpunished.
The al-Saud and their Wahhabite army get defeated. The leader, Abdullah al-Saud, is awaiting his execution on December 17, 1818 in Istanbul. The reasons for the death sentence are corruption on earth, division of Muslims, and rebellion against the Caliph. 3 generations after the pact between the al-Saud family and the Wahhabites, the triumph of the religious zealots seems to have stopped. the al-Saud Empire disintegrates into tribal regions again. Many relatives of the family get executed or move into exile. But Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab's seeds are sprouting and growing further. The al-Saud will also continue to make history. Their biggest enemy, the Ottoman Empire, is on the decline at the end of the 19th century. The former world power has shrunk to a fraction of its former size. Europe is talking about the sick man on the Bosphorus. In the years following the First World War, new borders are established in the Middle East. The future Syria and Lebanon are controlled by France. The future Iraq and Palestine are controlled by the British. Today's Israel, Jordan, and the autonomous Palestinian territories all stem from the mandated territory Palestine. Many Arabs perceive this division as a betrayal of the Muslim world. Another opportunity for another al-Saud. Abd al-Aziz ibn Saud, a descendant of the founder of the first Saudi state, comes on stage like a thunderbolt.
Abd al-Aziz shows his character basically with his very first big appearance in world history. He travels to Riyadh on horseback, allegedly with 40 followers, and kills the local Ottoman governor by his own hand. That is obviously quite an entrance into world history. But the main characteristics of this figure were not only his extreme determination and his brutality, but also his dealings with international politics.
Abd al-Aziz realizes the power void in his homeland. With his army of Wahhabite warriors, he is able to conquer the Arabian Peninsula again. In 1924, Mecca and Medina fall into his hands. In 1932, he proclaims himself king. From then on, his empire bears the name of his family, the Arabia of the al-Saud, Saudi Arabia. The national flag is a religious creed at the same time. Green is the color of the prophet. On green it is written, "There is no other God than God, and Muhammad is his messenger." Close to the oasis Diriyah, where the pact between Ibn Saud and Abd al-Wahhab has been made, a new capital is emerging, Riyadh. Today it is a metropolis with about 7 million residents. It was a simple stroke of luck that facilitated the leap from medieval times to the modern age. In 1938, crude oil was struck, which is the fuel of the industrialized Western nations. Through their massive oil fields, the al-Saud are becoming a powerhouse in global politics. In 1945, King Abdelaziz meets the most powerful man in the Western world, the American president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The cultural backgrounds of both men could not have been more different. But joint interests connect both nations to this day.
The Saudi oil did play an important role in establishing America as a global power, but Saudi Arabia also has another role. Saudi Arabia was one of a few countries to be certain this Wahhabite monarchy is not going to become a communist country. And if other countries in the region do become communist, then the Saudi Arabians will do anything in their power to make sure that this will not spill over to their country.
In order to preserve the family's power, the king appoints his successor alone, thus breaking the tradition of the tribal elders having a say. The honorary title, Servant of the Two Noble Sanctuaries, is more important to him and his successors than the title of king, because that is the true foundation of their power. The price of oil explodes in the 70s. The Saudis use oil as a bargaining chip for their politics. They are modernizing their nation with the aid of the petrodollar and are getting closer to the Western world. That causes criticism in their own country. The ruling family is accused of moving too far from the Puritan principles of Wahhabism. On November 20th, 1979, the discontent of the religious zealots erupts in a dramatic riot in Mecca. The military has to intervene because around 500 heavily armed rebels have occupied the Grand Mosque and taken the faithful gathered inside hostage. They are demanding a split from the Western world and deny al-Saud any authority. The assassins and their leader are defeated only with the help of a French special unit. They are executed. But they did accomplish something.
The ruling family knows now that there is a problem with its power base, and they react to that. They react to that with a conservative Wahhabite turnaround of sorts. As of 1979, they give free rein to the Wahhabite religious teachers throughout all levels of the Saudi Arabian society.
New Islamic universities get established throughout the country. A young generation of Wahhabite fundamentalists gets shaped here. They're supposed to promote their teachings. In fact, this ultra-strict Islamic doctrine is now being exported around the globe out of Saudi Arabia. It is ironic. Wahhabism, opposed to all pomp and luxury, made the al-Saud family immensely rich. They did not only enable the family to expand the holy sites to a size and splendor never seen before, but to also globally promote their own very Puritan version of Islam.
The Saudis changed Islam mostly by giving tremendous significance to a reform movement that had originated on the periphery of the Islamic world. I would say that Wahhabism today has indeed gained a global political importance. That is only imaginable because in the 20th century, the state of Saudi Arabia, with all its money, strength, and newly won importance, ensured that the Wahhabite teachings will make it over into the 21st century.